The most disturbing aspect of this case isn't just that 73-year-old Marvin Clark vanished without a trace on October 30th, 1926. It's that nearly 100 years later, his disappearance remains America's oldest active missing persons case, with investigators still searching for answers about what happened to him on that autumn day. Clark simply boarded a motor stage in Tigard, Oregon, bound for Portland to visit his daughter, and was never seen again. Despite decades of investigation, multiple theories, and even the discovery of unidentified remains that might be connected to the case, Marvin Clark's fate remains one of the most enduring mysteries in American law enforcement history. This is the story of a man who vanished into thin air and the century-long search for the truth. Viewer discretion is advised. If you're fascinated by cold cases and missing persons mysteries, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel with notifications turned on for more compelling investigations like this one. Marvin Alvin Clark was a man who had lived through some of the most dramatic changes in American history. Born around 1852, he had witnessed the Civil War, the Industrial Revolution, and the transformation of the American West from frontier territory to modern civilization. By 1926, at the age of 73 or 74, Marvin was living a quiet life in Tigard, Oregon, a small community just outside of Portland. He was described as a gentle, reliable man who maintained close relationships with his family, particularly his daughter who lived in Portland. Marvin's life had not been without its challenges. He was partially paralyzed on his right side, which gave him a distinctive halting gait and made walking difficult for him. Despite this physical limitation, he remained independent and was known for his determination to maintain his autonomy. He lived alone in Tigard, but regularly visited his daughter in Portland, making the journey by motor stage, which was the primary form of public transportation between the two communities in the 1920s. October 30th, 1926, was a typical autumn Saturday in Oregon, with the leaves changing colors and a crisp chill in the air that hinted at the approaching winter. Marvin had made plans to visit his daughter in Portland, a trip he had made many times before without incident. The journey from Tigard to Portland was routine and well-traveled, taking passengers through familiar countryside and into the bustling city center where Marvin's daughter lived. On that Saturday morning, Marvin prepared for his trip with his usual care and attention to detail. He gathered his belongings, ensured he had enough money for the fare and any expenses he might incur during his visit, and made his way to the motor stage stop in Tigard. Neighbors and acquaintances who saw him that morning later reported that he appeared to be in good spirits and showed no signs of distress or concern about the upcoming journey. The motor stage that Marvin boarded was a common sight on Oregon roads in the 1920s, providing reliable transportation between small towns and larger cities before the widespread adoption of private automobiles. These vehicles typically carried a dozen or more passengers and made regular stops along their routes to pick up and drop off travelers. The journey from Tigard to Portland was considered safe and routine, with experienced drivers who knew the roads well and a schedule that was generally reliable. Marvin took his seat on the motor stage and settled in for what should have been an uneventful trip to see his daughter. Fellow passengers later recalled seeing an elderly man with a halting gait board the vehicle in Tigard, but none of them paid particular attention to him during the journey. The motor stage made its way through the Oregon countryside, passing through small communities and farmland as it approached the outskirts of Portland. When the motor stage arrived at its destination in downtown Portland, passengers began disembarking and going about their business in the city. However, Marvin Clark was not among those who got off the vehicle. The driver and other passengers assumed that he had gotten off at an earlier stop along the route, perhaps to visit someone else or to run an errand before continuing to his daughter's house. No one thought anything unusual had occurred, and it wasn't until later that anyone realized something might be wrong. Marvin's daughter waited at her home for her father to arrive, expecting him to appear at her door as he had done so many times before. As the hours passed and Marvin failed to show up, she began to worry. Her father was punctual and reliable, and it was completely out of character for him to miss a planned visit without explanation. She tried to think of reasons why he might have been delayed, but none of them seemed likely given his habits and personality. When Marvin still hadn't arrived by the next day, his daughter contacted the motor stage company to inquire about whether her father had actually boarded the vehicle in Tigard. The company confirmed that an elderly man matching Marvin's description had indeed purchased a ticket and boarded the stage, but they had no record of where he might have gotten off. This information only deepened the mystery and increased the family's concern about what might have happened to him. The search for Marvin Clark began immediately, with family members, friends, and local authorities working together to try to trace his movements and determine what had happened to him. They contacted hospitals, morgues, and other motor stage companies to see if there was any record of Marvin being injured, becoming ill, or continuing his journey by other means. However, these inquiries yielded no useful information, and Marvin seemed to have simply vanished without a trace. As the investigation continued, several theories emerged about what might have happened to Marvin Clark. One possibility was that he had suffered a medical emergency during the journey and had gotten off the motor stage at an unscheduled stop to seek help. Given his age and physical condition, it was conceivable that he had become disoriented or confused and had wandered away from the road, becoming lost in the Oregon wilderness. Another theory suggested that Marvin might have been the victim of foul play, either robbery or assault during his journey or after arriving in Portland. The 1920s were a time of significant social upheaval, with Prohibition creating opportunities for criminal activity and violence. It was possible that Marvin had encountered criminals who saw him as an easy target due to his age and physical limitations. The case of Marvin Clark's disappearance attracted significant attention from law enforcement and the media, becoming one of the most widely publicized missing persons cases of the 1920s. Newspapers across Oregon and beyond carried stories about the mysterious vanishing, and tips and leads poured in from people who thought they might have seen Marvin or had information about what happened to him. However, none of these leads proved to be credible or helpful in solving the case. Over the years, the investigation into Marvin's disappearance has continued, with new generations of law enforcement officers taking up the case and applying modern investigative techniques to the decades-old mystery. The case has been entered into national databases and continues to be actively investigated by the Washington County Sheriff's Office, which has jurisdiction over the area where Marvin was last seen. In recent years, there have been several developments that have renewed interest in the Marvin Clark case. In 2014, human remains were discovered in Oregon that some investigators believed might be connected to Marvin's disappearance. The remains were subjected to extensive forensic analysis, including DNA testing and other modern techniques, but the results were inconclusive and could not definitively identify the remains as belonging to Marvin Clark. The case has also benefited from advances in genealogical research and DNA analysis that have helped solve other cold cases from the same era. Investigators continue to hope that new evidence or techniques might eventually provide the breakthrough needed to solve the mystery of what happened to Marvin Clark on that October day in 1926. Today, nearly a century after Marvin Clark's disappearance, his case remains active in the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, NAMUS, as case number MP14632. The case serves as a reminder of the thousands of people who have vanished without a trace throughout American history, and the families who have never received closure about their loved ones' fates. Marvin's story is particularly poignant because of the length of time that has passed and the fact that anyone who might have had direct knowledge of what happened to him has long since died. The enduring mystery of Marvin Clark's disappearance has made him something of a legend in Oregon law enforcement circles, representing both the challenges of investigating missing persons cases and the dedication of investigators who refuse to give up on finding answers. His case has inspired other families of missing persons to never stop hoping for resolution and has demonstrated the importance of maintaining detailed records and continuing investigations, even when decades have passed. If you found this investigation into America's oldest missing person case as compelling and mysterious as we did, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel with notifications turned on. We explore the most puzzling cold cases and unsolved mysteries, bringing attention to cases that deserve to be remembered and investigated. Your support helps us continue sharing these important stories and keeping hope alive for families who are still searching for answers. Until next time, remember that some mysteries span generations, and sometimes the passage of time only makes the search for truth more important, not less.